Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, Upgrading Google Analytics to Universal Analytics. To ensure you can hear me loud and clear, can you type hi in your chat window, or even better, sticking with tradition, tell us the weather in your area. Hopefully you should have some really sunny weather like we've got in London. I'll give you a couple of minutes to figure out how to do that. Once I get some questions rolling in, I know you can all hear me, or some chat messages. Anyone yet? No one responding? No. Oh, here we go. Lee says the weather is splendid in London. Indeed it is, Lee. Nick, splendid. Irina, okay. Adrian, hi. Okay, you can all hear me, which is fantastic. So, my name is Jonathan. If you don't know me, I'm the founder of eMarketeers. It's great to have you all here today, and we very much appreciate you signing in. Just a wee bit of housekeeping. Regarding today's webinar, Remco will be speaking for about 35 minutes. He's got quite a lot of content to get through. So we've reduced sort of question time to about 5 minutes at the end. Having said that, please do ping off your questions during the webinar. And if we can, we'll interrupt Remco with those questions. If not, if we haven't answered your questions, just email me after this webinar and we will do our best to follow up. And just to let you know also, we're recording it, so we'll upload the slide deck and a recording to our blog at www.emarketeers.com. So, introducing Remco van der Beek. If you don't know Remco, Remco is our resident analytics consultant and trainer. He runs our standard and advanced Google Analytics courses. He also runs our more strategy-focused web analytics and optimization course, and he does analytics consulting for us. In a past life, Remco was a senior consultant at Netstat, now Comscore, which is, if you don't know, Europe's leading web analytics vendor. And he's worked with lots of major organizations, including organizations like France Telecom. He also works with LBI, a very large European digital agency, and he's an analytics consultant there. And he finally spends most of his life on the Eurostar in between Brussels and London. So if you need any tips on which seats is the best one, I'm sure he'll help you after the webinar. So without further delay, I will hand you over to Remco. Remco, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Well, you saved me already talking through the first slide here, I think, because my first slide was my introduction of myself. I don't have to do that anymore. Indeed, I'm based in Brussels, and I've been working with eMarketeers for about 3 years, and Jonathan already told you all the rest. If after the webinar you have more questions or you want to stay linked via social media, you can find me here on these social media platforms and on that email address. So let's talk about universal analytics. This webinar is about upgrading to universal analytics, upgrading from the old Google Analytics to the new universal analytics. And in the next, well, 45 or 35 minutes, as Jonathan said, we're going to be basically going through these points. First of all, what is universal analytics? Let's demystify that a little bit. How do you upgrade from the old version to the new version of Google Analytics? What's new in terms of tracking codes and cookies? We're going to be looking at some settings, new settings in the Google Analytics user interface that come with with Universal Analytics, and we're going to be looking at custom dimensions and metrics to close on. So first of all, what's actually this big deal about Universal Analytics, and what is the big difference with Google Analytics as we used to know it? GATC, Google Analytics Tracking Code, and now we have Universal Analytics Measurement Protocol, UAMP. Well, first of all, the old Google Analytics measurement happened 100% client-side, so with JavaScript, through browser and cookies. In the new Universal Analytics Measurement Protocol, this is still there, but it's not 100% client-side measurement anymore. It's also part of the measurement happens server-side, which meaning measurements are sent directly to the Google Analytics server. We don't need cookies and browsers anymore to do that. As a result, we also need less cookies. The old Google Analytics placed 4 cookies, or at least 4, on the machines of your website visitors. The new Universal Analytics Measurement Protocol will only place 1 cookie on users' machines. What's also new is that the universal analytics is visitor-based, and maybe when you hear that, you think, well, wasn't that always the case? No, it wasn't. Google Analytics in the old days was session or visit-based, and basically visits were stitched back together to create a journey of a visitor. But today, everything is based on visitors. This measurement protocol also allows to do some very funky things with Google Analytics that weren't possible before. More on that in a minute. So yeah, the measurement protocol in Universal Analytics is kind of a big deal. And let's take a look at why that is. Basically, what it allows to do is to send raw user interaction data directly to Google Analytics servers. And we couldn't do that before. So because of the way this is set up, we can now actually connect online to offline behavior. We can send data from both the web and the server, and we can measure activity from different devices and new and different environments. We can sort of hook up any device to the Google Analytics or Universal Analytics measurement protocol and have it send data to Google Analytics. Let's take a look how we do that. This is the code here at the top. What you see here is actually what is sent as part of a request when data are sent to Google Analytics. And what you see here are basically all the data that were previously stored in Google Analytics cookies. In fact, there's less data because we have less cookies now. But what you see here in the end, in red, is this UID or user ID. And this is something that's completely new to Google Analytics. Basically, if you have a database with users or with IDs, you can connect this to Google Analytics and pass your user IDs on to Google Analytics so that you can create reports based on user IDs. It's not as simple as I just said it. You actually need to hook up your CRM database to your website. Today we're not going to go into that because that's quite complex and difficult to do. But it takes some development. And once you've done that, actually sending those data to Google Analytics is pretty easy, and generating the reports that come with that. If you want to know more about that, read the blog by Justin Catroni. User ID. Something else that this user ID will allow us to do, it will enable cross-device tracking. In the old Google Analytics days, if I visited your website via a desktop computer, I would be one unique visitor. And if I then visited your website via a tablet, I would be another unique visitor. And I do that again via my mobile phone, I'll be another unique visitor. So in total, 3 unique visitors. Because on every machine, we have a unique cookie with this CID in it, client ID. Now, because we can use user IDs, actually, we have a unique user ID that is captured on every device, across different devices. How is it captured? Well, you need to have a login on your website. You need some way of capturing the user ID, and ideally that's done through a login. And when people log in, yeah, you can recognize them through all different devices that they use, and you can connect their different journeys. So we can actually really see the full unique visitor journeys from now on. What we can furthermore do is connect on and offline behavior. Think of somebody who prints off a voucher from your website and redeems that voucher in a physical shop. If on that voucher is a scannable barcode that you scan, your barcode scanner can pass a measurement onto Google Analytics, and you can connect the online and offline activity of that customer. Same with loyalty cards. Loyalty cards that are used online and offline can be connected. If you have a CRM database, you can connect your CRM database to your website. Any purchases that happen, for example, via a call center can be correlated with website data. Or another possibility, a lot of web shops are facing returns, and Google Analytics sort of overstated always the number of purchases on web shops because returns weren't taken into account. Well, now we can fire measurements back to Google Analytics to actually correct the measurements for returns that came in. We can also connect different devices. Think of what I said, cash machines, even your fridge, the tweet mirror, maybe you've heard about that. Any kind of device we can hook up and make it send measurements to Google Analytics and connect all those different behaviors. So that's where the name Universal Analytics also comes from. It's universal. We can connect user journeys across a range of devices and in different environments. How do you upgrade from Google Analytics to Universal Analytics? Well, there's different ways of doing it. Maybe you've all, and let me switch for a second to my Google Analytics account that I had open here. Oops, sorry. This one. Maybe when you log into your Google Analytics, you have seen this notion in your administrator interface of Universal Analytics upgrade, transfer not started. Ooh, panic. Google is actually sort of urging us to start the migration. If you don't start the migration yourself, they will do it for you, and in fact they've already started doing that. Many of my client websites have already been migrated by Google itself because the clients didn't actually initiate it themselves. Well, what happens in a nutshell is if you don't initiate the migration, Google will translate measurements that are made with the old measurement code into reports that are using the new measurement code. But it won't actually change the measurement codes that are implemented on your site. It won't change the old JavaScript to the new JavaScript. So it's just a sort of a temporary solution. In the end, you will need to replace all Google Analytics code on your website because, as Google says here, they will eventually be deprecated. Data collected from deprecated features will be processed for a minimum of 2 years. So yes, they will sort of continue to process your data for another 2 years, but eventually it won't work anymore, your old Google Analytics implementation. So how do you migrate? Well, like I said, if you go to your admin environment in Google Analytics and you go to properties, you see there Universal Analytics upgrade transfer not started, and you can initiate your transfer there. What that will do is what I just explained. It will translate old Google Analytics measurements to new Universal Analytics measurements, but it won't actually change the code itself. That you will still need to do yourself. More about that in a minute. Another way of doing it is actually creating a new property in your admin environment, basically creating a new website, and creating a new Universal Analytics tracking code and implement that on your website alongside the old Google Analytics tracking code. So you have two Google Analytics codes that are working side by side. That's perfectly possible. And in addition then, you need to implement all the different code tweaks, which we'll be seeing in a minute. So let's look at those different tracking codes. Here on this slide, you see here at the top something you're probably used to. This is the old Google Analytics tracking code, the asynchronous tracking code, as it's also called. Here at the bottom is the new Universal Analytics tracking code. As you can see, it looks different, but in a way also similar. There is a JavaScript that is called here, GA.js, and in the new Universal Analytics, JavaScript is called analytics.js. And it's basically collecting data and sending that to a Google Analytics account number and profile. So when you implement Universal Analytics using a new Google Analytics property, just make sure it sends data to a different view number in your account. Otherwise you get duplication. So this is the basic tracking code that you will need to install on all of your pages. What that will do, it will call the JavaScript when people visit your pages and store some information in one cookie. What you see here is a website where we implemented both the old and the new Google Analytics, basically the one that we saw here on this slide. Here at the bottom you see 4 Google Analytics cookies from the old tracking code. In the new tracking code only one cookie is created, which is called _.ga, and it stays valid for 2 years if it isn't deleted in the meantime. Now, I talked about code tweaks. So what kind of tweaks can we make to the Universal Analytics tracking code? First of all, a while ago Google released this demographics and interest reports. If you want to make use of those, what you need to do in your admin interface is turn this button to on. And then in addition, you need to add or change one line of tracking code. Here, bottom right, this is the old tracking code and the way it used to be customized. Here in red, in the new Universal Analytics tracking code, all we need to do is add this one line, GA require display features, and that then will populate the demographic and interest reports in your Google Analytics account, and you will get to see data such as this, the age of your visitors, gender, interest, basically data coming from the Google Display Network. A second code tweak that we can apply is in-page analytics. In-page analytics is the overlay version that you may have played around with already in Google Analytics. So the overlay basically tells you what percentage or how many clicks were made on different links on a specific web page. Now this can be quite tricky if you have highly dynamic websites. So what you need to do, again, in the admin interface, you need to switch this in-page analytics button to on. And secondly, you need to add one line of code in your basic tracking code. Here at the bottom you see how it was done in the previous version. The text in red was added to the tracking code. In the new version we just need to add this one line, GA require link ID, link-id.js. And that will enable your in-page analytics reports. E-commerce tracking code. If you have a web shop, you should have e-commerce tracking code in place. E-commerce tracking code is always placed on the thank you page of the e-commerce process, so the confirmation page after you hit the order submit button, so to say. In order to switch those reports on in your Google Analytics interface, you need to tell Google that yes, my site is an e-commerce site, and secondly, you need to implement this code, e-commerce tracking code, on the thank you page of your e-commerce site. What is new, because those two things were already present in the previous version as well, although the script here is new. What is also new is that the e-commerce script is now a separate script, a separate JavaScript e-commerce.js that actually needs to be called. In the previous version of Google Analytics, that wasn't the case. Then we have the track social measurement code. Track social measurement code, the tracking of share buttons on your website. Here at the top you see the way it was done in the previous version of Google Analytics. You call track social, you define a network. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. And you define the social action, tweet, retweet, like, unlike, etc. Option target and page path, forget those for now. They are optional, they're not required fields. In the new version, it's similar but different. The code is GA send social, and then social network, social action, the same fields as before, basically. When you implement that, it sort of looks like this. Basically what you need to do, you need to implement a tracking, a social media share button. So the code piece here at the top actually enables the button, in this case Facebook button, and then the text or the code fragment here below actually collects data about the actions that are made via that button and sends them to Google Analytics.
Remco, can I interrupt?
It works the same. So more on those can. Sorry?
Remco, can I just interrupt? Lee's asked a question which is actually relevant to e-marketeers as well. So Lee said, will these work with add this? So, you know, add this being a
will these work with add this? Actually, for add this, it's a lot simpler. Add this has its own integration with Google Analytics. So all you need to do is basically enable the add this code or generate the button on your site, and you don't need to do anything else. This bottom piece is sort of integrated automatically with add this. You
Fantastic.
Don't need to do anything else.
There's your answer, Lee.
Okay, good question. Next code tweak, site speed. Google has these site speed reports, and if you don't actually change anything about the settings of those reports, basically those calculations are made on one portion of the traffic to your site. So that's a very tiny fragment of all your traffic. You can increase the sample that Google uses to calculate those site speed reports by adding a line of code, such as seen here, GA create, and then your account and profile number, site speed sample rate, and then here we set it to 100%. Take all visits that come to my website and calculate site speed on the basis of those. So you don't need to make it 100, you can make it 50, or you can make it 25. If you have a lot of visits, maybe don't make it 100. But if you have a website with relatively low traffic numbers, I would advise you to actually seriously increase that percentage. Then we have event tracking. Event tracking is used for measuring anything that's not a page view, really. So if you have links to PDFs that can be downloaded, if you have links to external websites, if you have any documents that can be downloaded, or even for video, you can use event tracking. Here at the top you see the syntax of the previous event tracking code. Here below, the new syntax for Universal Analytics. GA send event, and then category, action, and all the other labels are optional, so forget about them for now. Event, basically, category is, for example, download, and then action. In action you can specify the type of download or the name of a file. Here you can see it in action. This is actually a link to another website. So the website goes to www.advertisersite.com, and now we implement the event tracking on that link, and basically the link becomes www.advertisersite.com. On click, GA send an event of category external link with the action advertiser name, and as a label version A, because maybe we're testing different versions. Very simple to implement. What else is new in Universal Analytics? Well, in the user interface, you may have seen a bunch of new settings. Actually, this menu that I copied here, this is what you'll find under Properties in your Google Analytics account. And you see here under Tracking Info, Tracking Code, that's where you generate the actual JavaScript, the new Universal Analytics JavaScript. You can initiate also what we call the user ID that I spoke about in the very beginning. So in order to initiate it, basically Google asks you to, well, actually I have it here. You need to declare, you need to accept the conditions basically that Google puts forward for using this user ID. It all has to do with privacy. You cannot allow, or you cannot use or pass on any personally identifiable information in this user ID. So no names, no email addresses, those kind of things, just an anonymous user ID. You also will need to update your privacy policy on your site to actually inform users of your site about what data you are collecting and with what purpose, and that you're now actually also using user IDs. So that's step one, and then step two. So you need to do some development work to actually make sure your CRM or whatever database passes on these data to the web. That I'm not going to speak about today. But once you have a user ID that is passed on to the web, you can modify your code as follows. You can integrate a line GA set user ID and then the user ID number. So you just need to make sure you have a script in place that fetches this number from your backend databases, pushes it to your website, and then it can be sent to Google Analytics, and you can segment on these user IDs.
Remco, can I interrupt you? We have a question, and so it's a very valid question. If you don't have a login for your website, which most of us don't, how does Universal Analytics understand that the same visitor is using more than one device?
Yeah, it doesn't. So you need to pass on a unique user ID. So this is indeed you need to have a unique user ID. If you don't, yeah, then Google cannot connect those visits through different devices, etc. You need to have a user ID, and the most common way of generating that is via login. I won't say there's no other ways, but for now that's pretty much how it's done.
So you're pretty limited if you don't have a login, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Even if you don't have a login, that doesn't mean switching to Universal Analytics is useless, because eventually you're going to have to anyway, because Google will phase out the old code.
Sure, sure.
So everybody will need to migrate to this new Universal Analytics tracking code.
Got it.
But very valid question, and indeed I should have made that more clear. Now, if you do have this user ID, here's something that you can get from Google Analytics. You can actually set up what Google Analytics calls a user ID view. A view is what we used to call a profile in the old days. Well, now Google has this thing called user ID views. So you create a separate view where only activity about users with a user ID is logged. And you can actually see here in these reports their cross-device journeys. So you can see here, for example, people who visited via desktop, then via mobile phone, and then again via desktop, or people who first visited via tablet and then via desktop. And you can correlate those journeys to different outcomes or conversions on your website. So that's pretty neat. Something else that's new in the user interface, not new to Google Analytics as such, but new that we can manipulate it so easily through the user interface, is a session timeout handling. If a user stays on your site and does not do anything for 30 minutes or longer, that user will be timed out. And if he or she then clicks after an hour, that starts a new visit in your Google Analytics. And we can actually now change that time frame. So for example, if users on your site are automatically timed out after 5 minutes, yeah, it doesn't make sense to leave that at 30 minutes. You should reduce that to 5 minutes. It's minimum 1, maximum 4 hours. Campaign timeout handling, we can now also change that. By default, it's 6 months. And Google attributes conversions, as it says here, and revenues to the most recent traffic source that isn't direct. So let's say you did a campaign 6 months ago and somebody came to your website, didn't do anything for several months, and then came back to your site directly by typing the URL into the browser and then bought something or converted, that success is actually allocated to the campaign that happened months ago. And you may not want that. So maybe you want the time frame of a campaign to last only 1 month. Well, through the interface, you can now actually reduce that time frame or increase it if you think it should be longer. But usually it's decreased. We can also customize organic search sources. Basically, Google has a whole list of search engines that it allocates visits to, but maybe if you have very exotic or very local search engines that are not on that list, you can actually manually add them. You can also delete other search engines, or you can reorder the search engines because it sort of influences to which search engine a visit is matched. Again, something that we weren't able to do before. Also new and very useful, referral exclusions. Maybe you've seen this happening on your own in your own analytics. If you have a web shop, for example, when the moment people go to your shop and they buy something, well, actually they're sort of sent off from your site to another site where the payment is handled, and then sent back to your site. Those kind of referrals you can now exclude, so they won't pop up in your referral list anymore. Your own domain, for example, is automatically filtered. Very useful and something that was quite cumbersome before. Search term exclusions, also very neat. Think of people who come to your website using branded keywords, the name of your brand or organization, or the website domain of your website. In a way, all of these are branded search terms. And you could argue, well, these are not, this is not search traffic, these are people that already knew me anyway, and I want to qualify this as direct traffic. What you then need to do is basically enter those keywords here in this box and submit them, and they will be discounted from search traffic and added to direct traffic in your reports.
Can I ask a question personally about that one? Because of course organic keywords are not provided now. So because Google claims it's encrypted between Google and your website. So looking at that slide, it's almost saying that Google doesn't really encrypt the search traffic. It still knows the keyword that people have searched for, but it's just not telling us, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Bit cheeky.
Yeah, okay. Of course they do. I mean, there's still a percentage of keywords that they do pass on. I mean, Google knows all too well what keywords we use. It just not wants to give them to us.
Yeah, sure. Very interesting. Okay, thanks, Remco.
And then last but not least, we have what we call these custom dimensions and metrics. Also new, you'll find that here in your property menu under custom definitions. You have custom dimensions, custom metrics. You have 20 of each, 20 dimensions, 20 metrics. And what they're actually used for is to sort of add measurements to Google Analytics. So imagine this, you have a login on your site, for example, and yeah, if you don't do anything and you go into your Google Analytics report, you will never know whether those visits came from a person that was logged in or not. So what you can do is you can use custom dimensions to actually tell Google, hey, this was a visit from somebody who was logged in. Or another use case, if you have pages on your site that were written by a specific author, for example. In your default Google Analytics pages, you will never see what author your pages were written by. With these custom dimensions, you can pass on the author name to Google Analytics, and you can actually start segmenting your reports on author name. And there are many, many different other use cases that you can think of probably. So how is this done? Well, all you need to do, really. Let me actually see if I can demo it. We still have a few minutes. If I go to admin, I have here custom definitions, and I go to custom dimensions, new custom dimension. I have to give it a name. So in this case, I would say it's, for example, login, and I would have to define the scope. The scope can be hit, session, or user. So basically what Google is asking me here, does this custom dimension apply to a user or visitor, to a session or a visit, or to a hit? A hit is usually a page view. So for example, take the example of the author that I just mentioned. Yeah, that would be applicable to a page, so that the scope would be hit. But if you have a login on your site, you would typically use session, because you have visits that are coming from visitors that are logged in, and you have visits from visitors that are not logged in. Or if you have visitors that need to subscribe to your site, and there are different formulas to subscribe to your site, gold, silver, platinum type of thing, then you could say, well, this is a user custom dimension of the type gold, for example. And then you would need to tick the active box to tell Google this is an active custom dimension. I'm not going to actually save this. I'm going to do it. And then when you've done that, you need to add these measurements to your measurement code. So this is my universal analytics code, and basically I add here a state that's a line that says dimension, and you have 20 of them. So in this case, dimension 15. You can give it a name, my custom dimension. Or if you use custom metrics, my custom metric. That, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, is in 35 minutes. I think I've done pretty well. Sort of all the things that are new in Universal Analytics.
Remco, that's fantastic. We have time for one question, and it's probably a question you get asked all the time, and it's not necessarily to do with Universal Analytics, which is, can Universal Analytics be used to track activity behind a password-protected login, such as an intranet? Which I guess is the same as asking the question about Google Analytics, isn't it? Really? What's your?
Yeah. So can it be used to track information behind a password-protected intranet?
Yeah, or any content that's password protected, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even with the old Google Analytics, it could be used on intranets. This is no different. That's still possible.
I guess if anything, it's more advantageous, because then you do have the login, which you can then use to track cross devices and what have you, as you explained earlier.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now we have that bonus indeed of that cross device tracking. Yeah, what you also start seeing, that this will be adopted a lot by retailers to connect data from different devices to create a more holistic view of their customers. So that's really also a big revolution.
Sure. And one more question from Lee, just a very quick one. When we move over to Universal Analytics, will we lose any historical data on our existing GA profiles, or will they continue to work? My guess is no, you won't lose anything, but I'll let the Oracle speak.
Yeah, well, again, it depends on how you migrate. So if you do the upgrade through the upgrade center, as Google Analytics proposes, basically the upgrade happens within the same property and view, so you won't notice it. You will keep your old data and your new data within one view. Whether these data are all calculated the same way, well, no. Actually, if you have, as I proposed, a Google Analytics code, an old and a new one running side by side on your site, and you look at your statistics, you will see that there are minor differences. Differences in unique visitor count, differences in visit count, etc. Not big, what? 10% maybe? So that's why I'm saying it's better to implement the new code alongside the old one and create a new view in Google Analytics, and you can actually get used to it and get to know the differences also.
Exactly.
But you won't lose your old data, for sure. Your old profile will still be there. Mind you that Google at all times stipulates that it will guarantee that data will be kept only for 24 months, so 2 years.
In fact, Elizabeth asked a question which is similar. When will you be forced to move over if you don't upgrade? I suppose as you're saying.
Now. Now. It's
yeah.
already happening now. I already have some sites where Google already migrated it, or initiated the auto migration, as they call it. So yeah, really don't wait too long, because Universal Analytics was in beta for quite a while. It came out of beta, well, a few weeks ago. And now they're really getting quite aggressive on moving everybody over to this new tracking code.
This is probably an apt opportunity to do a very quick sales pitch, which is if you are struggling with any implementation, we are very much here to help. So get in touch and we can look at your code, migrate for you, and help you obviously with any further analysis. So you know, if you are feeling a bit daunted by the whole prospect, we're here to help you out if necessary. But I think we're done. Remco, have you got anything else to add?
No, just want to thank everybody for showing up, and yeah, good luck with your Universal Analytics migrations.
Brilliant. Well, Remco, thank you very much. Just to let you guys know, a copy of this deck will be on our blog, as I said earlier. I wish you all a very splendid weekend. I hope you enjoy the sun. It looks like it's going to be a good one. And we'll see you at the next webinar. Many thanks.